Whitetail deer can run faster, jump higher, see farther, smell more, sneak quieter, hear more, and get along better than we can in the outdoors. He's a full-time deer. We're only part-time hunters. His physical characteristics, natural instincts, and ability to adapt to his environment stack the odds in his favor. In this tape, we'll help you improve your odds by linking the concepts developed in the production way of the whitetail to practical hunting situations. You'll learn how to circumvent the deer's natural defenses of scenting, hearing, seeing, and instinctive wariness. We'll also debunk myths about deer and deer hunting, and offer proven strategies to increase your hunting success. We'll develop a pre-season plan, which will build into a hunting action plan to help you enjoy more successful whitetail deer hunting. Your guide is outdoor writer and cinematographer Jerry Chiapetta, who has spent 30 years researching and hunting whitetails. Jerry lives and works in Michigan and continues to hunt there and in his native Pennsylvania mountains each fall. He's a trophy hunter whose most prized whitetails include several which scored high in the record books with racks of 14 and 16 points.
Successful hunting begins long before we get to this important stage of sighting in our rifles and our shotguns. Successful hunting begins when we fully understand and appreciate deer. You know, most hunters stumble into deer by chance. I'll show you how to find them on purpose and be able to do it under all kinds of weather and in any type of cover. Think of your hunting experience as pre-season and in-season, or pre-hunt and hunt. First, we need the knowledge and understanding of deer along with a healthy respect for whitetails before we need this for that clean, sure shot. Deer are the most intelligent and fascinating big game animals in North America, and the most widespread. If you hope to outsmart him, you must appreciate the fact he lives out here where you are only a casual visitor. It's important to realize, too, that a big old wise buck reached trophy status being wise. They're aware of every bush, tree, trail, and fence post in their territory. When something or someone enters the whitetail's world, he smells it, hears it, sees it, or simply knows it's there. Deer have an exceptional awareness. It isn't anything mystic or magic. It's just a combination of the whitetail's biological defenses, finely tuned and working 100% of the time to detect scent, sounds, sights that may signal danger to the deer. You'll find more deer after you gain a better understanding of all the whitetail's defense mechanisms. The best way to get started is by studying the production called Way of the Whitetail. Good hunting begins with hunting where the deer are. Ask yourself if you want a deer or do you want a big buck with a big rack. There's an important difference. In Way of the Whitetail, we explain that to have big antlered bucks, we need three things: good food, long life, and good genetics. First, let's consider long life. Bucks reach their prime at about 3.5 years of age, and that prime growth continues for about 5 years, and then it goes downhill. By the way, only 1 in 6 brings home the venison. So learn which regions are lightly hunted, and that's where you're going to find the older, bigger bucks that may have the big racks. In the more popular deer states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, just to mention a few, as many as 75% of all the bucks shot during some seasons are only 1.5 years old. Luck or chance play a very small part in hunting success. Your hunting success takes time and effort, and serious trophy hunting requires even more dedication to put a buck like this on the meat pole. Preseason research and on-site scouting are both important in the overall hunting strategy. Your success is determined in a large measure before opening day. You must know how to select the right deer hunting state, and then the right county within that state, and then the right township within that county. You're narrowing down all the time to pick the very best hunting, from the state to the county to the township, maybe to the deer management zone, and that's the area you can command with your gun. Review the Game Department's kill records to pinpoint those counties, townships, and state game management units that you can nail down the localities with the highest hunter success. Remember, you're zeroing in all the time, getting it down to an area that you can command within the range of your rifle or your shotgun. To re-emphasize, it takes a plan, and it takes scouting. But if your scouting is done too early, say in the late summer, the information on whitetail movements will not be valid by the time hunting season begins, usually in the early fall. Deer will not be on summer range because of several factors, the key one being the onset of the rut and the changing food supplies. So scouting should be done just a few weeks prior to hunting. Question the farmers, the game managers, the rural mail carriers, foresters, woodcutters, and landowners about where deer are or are likely to be when you're hunting.
Hi, we're looking for a place to hunt. Is your dad around?
Yeah, he's down by the barn.
Okay, thank you.
How you doing?
Oh, not too bad.
I'm Larry. This is my brother
As part
Hutch.
of this pre-hunt effort, you are also asking for permission to be on that private property.
Up here, and wanted to come up and ask for your permission to hunt on your land.
Well, I'm glad you did. Good many people don't.
Well,
But anybody that asks, welcome.
Have you had any deer crop damage?
They've been coming in the field there and eating corn and destroying quite a bit of crops. So,
think that might be a good place to hunt down there?
you can hunt down there, over there, any place at all. You see any good signs, why, you're welcome to hunt. Park and take care of the gates and...
Okay.
We're driving a red Ford van, so you'll know what kind of vehicle we have.
Okay.
Well, thanks a lot, and we sure do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good luck out there.
Well, we'll need it. Thank you.
Now we're ready for the next stage of the pre-hunt or pre-season work. That's when you actually start scouting a specific location that you want to be hunting on opening morning. When you're out there hoofing about the landscape, make notes on a number of important things.
See the fresh tracks here, friend?
Yeah. You're creating your own specific hunting map. I call mine my magic mile, and on it I write down everything that will affect my hunting on opening morning.
Just broke down through the ice down here.
Yeah.
Your own personal magic mile can never have too much information. You should note all those things like hills, valleys, fence lines, roads, trails, and so forth. If you do this important task properly, you'll be able to figure out your very best hunting spots under all sorts of weather, good, bad, dark, or sunny.
That's a nice rub.
When it's bright and sunny, these deer are most likely going to be in some thick cover. They're also going to be in thick cover when it gets nasty out, when the weather turns really sour. The stronger the wind, the deeper into the thick cover the deer are going to be, which means they're going to be somewhere in this swamp area down in here. This is our symbolic deer yard. This is just a big swamp. This is, in our whole Magic Mile, that's the thickest area we have to play with. That's where you're going to do most of your hunting. These other areas are feeding areas around the outside, but this is where they are, this is where they live. And this is where we're going to do our serious hunting. But this is real deep stuff here, chest high, deep, thick briars, wet, dark, protected from wind. Deer are going to be hiding in there. You want to develop a strategy in there. So, we also have to remember when we're hunting, always, that the wind is a factor. In most of our deer country, the wind is out of the north and northwest, as we mentioned. There it is. That's the way the wind is blowing. Top of the map up here is north, south, east, and west. So we would come in, say early in the morning, park along this old dirt road down here in the swamp. We would go off into here, have our spots selected in advance. We know that deer are going to be feeding in the acorns and filtering in here. They're going to be in the rye field early morning, filtering in here. They're going to be in the cornfield, and then they're going to be filtering in here. So these are feeding areas. These are resting areas. This old orchard is a feeding area. The thick swamp is a resting area. The deer are going to be going back and forth like that. Now, that's only one possible plan based on the circumstances given. It's not the only strategy. We're going to return later to our Magic Mile and explore some other hunting situations and develop some additional strategies. Before getting too far ahead in our story and heading for the great outdoors, we have to get ourselves and our equipment in good condition. Pre-season scouting also helps condition your body. You're going to be doing a lot of healthy hiking, and that's good, because heart attacks kill more hunters each season than bullets. The National Safety Council reports swimming and tennis are 10 times more dangerous than hunting. Skiing is 20 times more dangerous. Roller skating, 50 times more dangerous. Hunting is 3,000 times safer than playing football. Swimming and pleasure boating are also far more hazardous to your health than hunting. But let's face it, there are some hunting dangers, but you can minimize those through knowledge and awareness. For example, statistics show the two most dangerous people are you and your nearest companion. Safety experts report the most frequent accidents are during loading and unloading or when handling firearms around vehicles. I repeat, that self-inflicted wounds and wounds caused by your nearest companion are the most common.
Yes, sir. This is what we waited for all year.
Too bad it takes so long to come.
Well, you know, if it happened every day, it wouldn't be any fun. A lot of hunters are injured loading and unloading guns, so we'll be careful.
Looks like it's going to be a pretty nice day.
You got it. We're all set. You ready?
Ready to go?
Let's
Sure
go get
am.
'em.
Let's go bang a buck.
Righto.
You know, you don't have to wait until opening day to study deer or take their pictures. And you shouldn't wait until deer season to getting around to selecting your rifle or your shotgun. Picking the type of firearm action is a very personal matter. There are some advantages and disadvantages to all of these. Briefly, the pump action, for example, is very reliable in all sorts of weather. Wet, snowy conditions don't seem to bother it. And it's excellent for left or right-handed shooters, too. My dad, for example, is right-handed, but shoots left-handed like so because of an injured eye from a coal mine accident in Pennsylvania. This is an auto-loading rifle. It's also called a semi-automatic. It's the fastest shooting rifle that you can get today. It requires only a simple trigger pull for each shot. However, there is a problem. although it's very popular, but it is banned in some states like Pennsylvania with 1.3 million hunters. That rifle is prohibited. You have to have a rifle there or a shotgun with an action, like the pump, the bolt, or the lever. Speaking of the lever action, this has been around since the days of the early West. It's also very popular today, but it is limited in its selection of cartridges. My personal favorite is the bolt action. While it's not the fastest, it is the most accurate of all the actions. And beside that, the first shot is the most important one. Bolt actions also have the largest selection of calibers, and they're most easily fitted with scopes. What we're doing here is creating a perfect combination, a three-way combo with the best sights, and we're recommending telescopic sights for both rifles and shotguns, the best gun for your style of hunting, and finally, the best cartridge. Different hunting styles call for different types of firearms and different ammunition. All of these will down a deer if used accurately. The final choice of cartridge and bullet weight is dictated by the type of cover you'll be hunting. For example, long-range shots call for a flat-shooting, higher-powered cartridge. Hunting in thick, tangled swamps or heavy timber creates a requirement for a slower bullet, such as a heavier .35 Remington. Both of these will down a deer, but they are wrong in the extreme. This .22 rimfire is inadequate, and this .458 Magnum is too powerful. It's actually better suited for elephant hunting. We need cartridges down the middle range for deer, which are considered light to medium weight big game. There are about 20 or 30 good deer cartridges around today that are adequate for whitetail hunting. You should select one that can throw a bullet of 80 to 200 grains in weight at around a ton of muzzle energy and with a muzzle velocity of around 3,000 feet per second. The number one choice in cartridges today is the .30-06. It has surpassed the old .30-30 as the most popular whitetail bullet. The .06, as it's affectionately called, is a .30 caliber which is available with the widest range of factory-loaded bullets. These are 125 grain, 150 grain, 165, 180, and 220 grain. I like to use these 180 to 220 grain bullets because in heavy cover they don't deflect as easily. In more open areas where I might get a shot of, say, 100 yards or more, I like a lighter bullet, like 150 grain. It has a much flatter shooting trajectory. You know, I sort of chuckle every time I hear these self-proclaimed experts talk about bullets that buck the brush, slam through trees as thick as telephone poles, and go on to bring down the deer. That's not just a myth, it's a serious misconception. Some small, high-caliber, high-velocity bullets may deflect or even explode on impact with a tree or a twig or a branch, but we're not recommending such hot cartridges for whitetail hunting. And we're certainly not recommending trying to shoot through trees and branches when you're out there. You can't shoot them if you can't see them. Your gun is only as good as your sights. I strongly recommend telescopic sights on rifles and shotguns when you're deer hunting. That scope gives you several advantages. Most importantly, it adds an element of safety. Scopes also draw in light so you can see into darker areas. That's that element of safety I mentioned. Of course, the better you can see, the more successful and safer you are as a hunter. This type of variable-powered rifle scope gives you added magnification at the higher settings, like this, and a wider field of view at lower power settings. A wider field of view means just that. You see more area through the scope, literally a wider field. It's just like this variable-powered camera lens. On my .30-06, I have a 3 to 9 power telescopic variable sight, and on my 20-gauge Remington pump gun that I use for deer hunting, I have a 3 to 5 power scope. Do your practice shooting with the same gun, scope, and bullet combination you'll be using while hunting. This will result in greater familiarization.
Hold the gun firmly up against your shoulder. Elbow
Of course, sight in with the same brand of ammunition as well as the same bullet weights that you'll be using for hunting.
And squeeze the trigger slowly as well. You don't want to jerk it like when you shoot the bow.
A lot of hunters will miss deer because there is no bullseye on the deer that shows them where to put the crosshairs.
Keep it steady now. The weight on the bench, not on your hand. Good. Did you see where you hit?
I don't think I
You
did.
should practice on a life-size or at least a realistic deer target. An excellent tip is to replay this tape and Way of the Whitetail and select those vital target areas on the many deer shown in these two video productions. We've been doing all of our practice shooting at 50 yards because that's the realistic deer hunting range. 50 yards or less, that's where most deer are taken. You can add 100 yards or so when you tell the story about how you got your big deer, but we all know in the real world of hunting, it's hard to even see 100 or 150 yards in the big deer woods, let alone hit a deer that far. Okay, here we have a life-size whitetail deer. It's really, like I said, in Way of the Whitetail, only about 3 feet tall at the shoulders. Now, when you see a deer running like this, where do you hold? There's no bullseye on the deer. This is a good target to practice with because it has the vital areas marked. For example, here we have where you would hold for a brain shot, the spinal column down the back side of the neck here, and then this is the primary area, the lungs. Down in the lower front part of the chest cavity, we have the heart and the shoulder area. That's your best area to hold. Now, a high shot in the deer will still pick up the spine. When the deer's running in that direction, as we see him here on this practice target, you'd have to hold up in this area for a shot in the vital region. That's your best area to hold on a deer running that way. Let's take a look at another one. This would be a quartering shot, quartering away from you. Very common. As the deer spots you, he then starts to move away, and this is what he looks like on the target on the practice range. Your best area to hold would be, again, up here in the heart, lung region, up in the front quarter of the deer. You also have the shoulder, and if you're high, you might be lucky to get a brain shot, and then here, of course, is the spine. But this is your primary area where we're drawing this area where you put the crosshairs. If your rifle is hitting the bullseye dead on when you hold dead on at 50 yards, that's perfect. Shots of less than 50 yards will be only an inch or so high, and shots from, say, 50 on out to 100 yards or so will usually be only an inch or so low. At either extreme in ranges, you will still be well within the vital area on a white-tailed deer. A good field shot is one who knows all the traditional shooting positions and also knows how to take advantage of natural rests. It's false pride, and it's unfair to the deer if you don't make as accurate a shot as you possibly can. Now, that may mean leaning against a tree or a fence post, or kneeling to get steady. Use that sling to its best advantage. Safety recommendations from the National Rifle Association are always worthy of review, especially if they help us get more familiar with our firearms. For example, if your hunting companions won't follow the safety rules, then you should refuse to hunt with them. Remember, you and your nearest companion are the two most dangerous hunters in the woods, statistically speaking. So pick your partners carefully. Some important safety tips that we'd like to review with you. Treat every firearm as if it were loaded at all times. Carry the gun so that you can control the muzzle in case you slip and fall. Never point that rifle at anyone. Be sure of your target and beyond. And if ever in doubt, don't shoot. Never use that rifle scope as a substitute for binoculars. If that rifle goes off, that's where the bullet's going. By the way, that scope should be kept clean with lens fluid and lens cleaning tissue, and not with a dirty handkerchief or some other rough material that's going to scratch the scope glass. In the interest of safety and to aid in successful hunting, rain and snow should be kept out of the lens with a commercial scope cap cover or with a wide cut of rubber inner tube like this hunter is using. In that same vein involving personal safety and personal hunting success, you have to be able to use a map and a compass. If you're in a large, unbroken tract of woods, it's important not only to your hunting success, but to your own personal safety.
Uncle Bill, is there any chance we get lost during the drive?
I doubt it, Peter, because you're going to be driving between me and Uncle Frank, and hopefully we'll keep you in sight, or you'll be able to see either Uncle Frank or myself all the time. But if you should somehow get wandering off, if you keep the wind to your back and keep going to the east with your compass and use that all the time, you should have no problem whatsoever, and you're going to walk into the standards. Keep going to the east, you're going to run into all these standards before you come to this other road. So you have no problem about getting lost.
I like a pin-on compass. I got one right here. It's right out in the open where I can glance down at it while I'm hunting. You don't wait till you're lost to whip out your compass and expect it to tell you where the car or the camp is. It doesn't work that way. You have to have confidence in your compass, and you have to use it all the time. In other words, if we're going off into the woods here, I glance down at it and I say, oh, okay, I'm walking south in that direction. To come back to the camp or the car back here, all I do is turn around and walk north. Now, I might be a little bit left or a little bit right of it, but I'm going to be close enough, so I'm going to have that confidence to get back in the deep woods, back where the other hunters don't go, and back where the big deer live. That's where I'm going. Besides studying that map, a good, safe hunter also takes time to know all the game laws. Make sure you understand what's legal and what zone you're hunting in. If antlerless deer are fair game, for example, make sure your permit for antlerless deer is for the game management zone that you're in. Here are some other rules to live by. The NRA's Hunter Code of Ethics reminds us to always obtain the landowner's permission, always obey every rule of gun safety, follow the laws of the state, insist that all in your party do the same, support good conservation efforts, and pass along to younger hunters these attitudes and skills that are essential to being an ethical sportsman. There are some fascinating theories about successful deer hunting. For example, there's one that says that the hunter should not eat meat before a hunt, for a week or so before the hunt, because apparently eating meat makes you smell like a bear, a wolf, a lion, or some other meat-eating predator that feeds on deer, and deer don't like that. In fact, if you go back into history and study the Native American Indians, they used to fast and take sweat baths prior to going on their big hunt. And it was more than just a spiritual thing. It really did leave them cleaner and odor-free. Ironically, many hunters today do just the opposite. Apparently, they fail to appreciate the deer's defenses, especially his number one defense, his sense of smell. You know, when you're hunting, it's very important that you keep yourself and your hunting clothes clean. And I mean odor-free. Also, you should keep your body clean. Wash your hair often. You know, your hair is a great odor collector. Also, you should wash with non-perfumed soaps and dust your boots with baking soda. It's one of our best natural deodorizers. Avoid cleaning establishments which use strong chemicals on your hunting clothes. After cleaning, be sure your outfit is aired out. Do not allow it to soak up the smelly odors of a hunting camp. Keep it in the plastic bag, and then just before hunting, take it outdoors and air it out like this. You know, it's really important. Be conscious of all possible odors on your body, on your clothes, and on what you carry. There are some serious odor producers you don't think about too much. Let me name a couple. A cigarette lighter. It's a real stinkerino. You shouldn't smoke anyway. Another one is a hand warmer. Even sandwiches with strong foods like salami. That makes odors. Menthol cough drops, peanuts, and even some strong gun cleaning solvents, just to name a few. I just want to get you thinking about those odors. There's another way you can camouflage your odors or your scent and confuse deer, and that is by using one of the commercially made preparations. Do they work? I don't know for sure. Some hunters wouldn't leave camp without them, and some others are quite skeptical. You got to remember this, however, we're dealing with the deer's #1 defense mechanism. That's his nose, and that's a hard thing to fool. Again, refer to Way of the Whitetail for a detailed study of all the deer's senses. You know, a hunter can't help make some noise when you're hunting, particularly when you come through stuff like that, and that's where the deer like to hide. What you have to try to do when you're out there is try to imitate natural sounds. In other words, don't stomp, stomp, stomp like a human being with your 2 legs pumping away. Shuffle along. Let me show you. Watch. You're going through leaves, noisy stuff like this. Try this. Just quietly. Watch where you place your boot. Avoid the twigs if you can. I'm staying in here in this thick stuff just to help demonstrate the point. Step around the stuff like that, see? And when you do crack a twig, don't panic. You know, it could be a squirrel, could be another deer, could be a rabbit. Use your ears, too. Pause, listen, and move off. A good hunter has to get in tune with the outdoors. That means he has to become part of his surroundings. The next whitetail defense you have to deal with is the deer's eyes. His vision is excellent, especially his ability to spot movement. One of the ways to overcome this excellent vision is to build a natural blind. Select a stand against a hillside, next to a large tree or stump, or in some other natural setting that will hide your outline. A newly built blind, no matter how well it's made, is not a good idea. Deer have to get used to a blind. It should be erected at least a week before season. This hunter is making use of his surroundings to hide his outline and some of his movements. A tree stand helps because a deer doesn't look up as often as he looks around at ground level. They do look up, however, and they will detect movement, or shine, or smell a scent, or hear a noise from a hunter in a tree or an elevated blind. Wearing non-shiny clothes helps a great deal, even if the clothing is blaze orange, as it should be for safety during the firearm season. Deer can see red and variations of red, but there are no studies which prove that these colors, these bright fluorescent colors, diminish your chances for success. Here we have a lineup of some typical hunting outfits, from what I consider the very worst or most dangerous on the far left to the best and most visible on the far right. You know, as a youngster, just starting out as a hunter, I had a difficult time seeing deer in the outdoors. And my father, even with his poor vision due to an eye injury, could spot him out here in a wink. And he taught me how to see deer. Dad said you only see a whole deer on hunting calendars, in paintings, or in outdoor magazines. In the woods, you look for parts. That means being alert for the black tip of the ears, or the nose, or the flick of the tail, or the white patch under the chin, the nervous movement of a leg, and that horizontal line when all the other lines in the wild are pretty much straight up and down. Learn to look through the trees and the brush by concentrating your focus. Yes, look through these things. Good binoculars help a great deal, and it takes practice to focus beyond the immediate surroundings. And a good time to do this practice, of course, is out when you're doing your scouting. I'll wear these yellow shooting glasses when I'm out hunting. They do give me some protection against the branches that always seem to want to poke you in the face. And they also, this yellow tint, also makes things stand out in the dull November, December woods when you're hunting. I like to wear these because they help me see through the deer's natural camouflage, so you don't have any excuse if a deer sneaks on by you. capitalize on whitetail behavior that is predictable, such as his habit of using the same trails or runways to and from resting and feeding areas. Habit is part of the whitetail's nature that can bring him down. Use this shortcoming to your advantage. Don't unwittingly give the whitetail any more advantage than he already has over you. And of course, don't be like this group starting a day of hunting. Just watch and listen to all the mistakes they're making. This party is typical of millions of hunters who just don't realize all that they're doing wrong.
Where are you going to hunt, Hutch?
I'll probably go back up on the hill where we usually go.
All right. You got a flashlight?
You come with me. I got a light, Pete.
All right. I'll get next to
Pete, put this back on the truck, okay? Here. Hold my gun.
I got it. Put your light on there, Pete.
Bob, you got the light? All set.
There's one here. Go ahead, you guys go. I'll go with Peter.
You going that way?
Yeah, we'll go up on the ridge.
All right.
Okay, good luck, guys.
About noon.
Okay.
All right, see you later.
Come on, Pete.
These hunters may just as well be sending up exploding flares. Of course, the most important warning flare of all is one that we can't even see or hear. It's scent. Always be conscious of it as you plan your hunt, since it affects your chances from the very moment you step out of the cabin or out of your car. To shoot a deer, you must get in range. To get in range with that deer, he has to come to you or you have to go to him. These are wary, almost paranoid animals because for millions of years, predators have been eating them. They don't like getting close to anything foreign, particularly humans. The chief reason deer successfully avoid getting shot is that humans make a lot more mistakes than the deer make. Study this scene and make a note now of how many things this hunter is doing wrong. rewind your videotape now and study that scene again. How many mistakes did you count? There are actually 20 serious mistakes here. And let me group them for you by categories: movement, sight, sound, scent, and just plain poor hunter technique. I contacted nearly 24 deer biologists, game managers, guides, and other authorities about hunter success, about what works and what doesn't work. And you know what? They all agreed that selecting a proper stand like this, staying put on that stand, staying quiet, and staying alert was the most successful deer hunting tactic. Reading deer is a big step beyond just seeing deer. By reading deer, I mean you have to read their body language. This means the deer is relatively calm. He probably will raise his head after flicking his tail in a rhythm. Time that rhythm or his movements so that you know when you can dare make your move and get ready for the shot. This deer is alarmed. He may offer only a brief moment for a quick shot. This deer is trying to get you to move, to reveal yourself. Just hold still. He's got you spotted. There is something back there. It could be a bigger deer, maybe a big buck. It's really thrilling to get close to deer and to be able to read deer. But if all you're reading are white tails waving bye-bye, then you're doing something wrong. If that's your male, then you're not using the right zip code. Another typical mistake is that the wind is ignored, and it can never be ignored when you're hunting. Just remember, it must be in favor of those on a stand. If I'm on stand here, I'm waiting for my friends to drive this way, that wind should be blowing in my face. If I'm on the drive and I'm coming through, I want that wind on the back of my neck like that. If you remember that very simple rule, you'll never make a mistake again about the wind. Another excellent tip is give the standers about a half an hour of quiet time at their assigned spots before the drive begins. Standers must also remain concealed and as quiet as possible. They must remain at their stands and be extremely careful of their targets. Remember, on a drive, we have armed hunters moving toward other armed hunters. You know, people get excited, they're all keyed up, they're expecting to see deer. Drivers do not have to be continuously making noise, but they must be continuously thinking about safety, safe gun handling. When to make a drive depends on how the deer are moving or not moving. For example, what are the hunters doing? You'll see very few drives on opening morning because the deer are not alarmed and they're moving pretty good on their own, usually. Later in the day, the hunters get bored, the deer quit moving, you're going to hear more drives going on around you. Be alert. A typical hunting day will begin with an hour or two of very quiet standing at a spot that you scouted out earlier. Then the hunters will gather, meet with their buddies, compare notes on deer movements, shots heard, hunter traffic, and other factors. And from all of that, we'll evolve a plan for a drive during the duller midday period. Another excellent technique with only 2 hunters is a mini drive. It's what I call it anyway, a mini drive. And let's see how you would work one here. Remember the wind. Let's say today the wind is out of the southwest, coming in that direction. And we're going to drive this little oak stand, and we have 2 pretty good hunters who work together. And this is what you do. Say you park up here on the gravel road, you're going to hunt into the wind this direction. One man, say, would start up here. The other one would walk down and start on this side of the ridge. And they would sort of work together in that direction, into the wind, stopping, starting. One man goes to the top of the ridge, the other one crosses over into the valley. This one comes down here. This one moves up here to the ridge. This one comes around the trees this way. This number 2 hunter comes down here. This one goes down the fence row. They meet over here on the edge of the oak ridge back in the valley, figure out their strategy. It really works great. It's one of my favorite ways to hunt. And it only works if you've got 2 good hunters and they really are in tune with one another. They know the speed and the pacing in the woods, and they're just good hunters, and it's a real fun way to hunt. Again, one man moves, one man stands still. You always have to know where you're going and what your plan is with your other partner in mind. In other words, let's say we're going to work to the edge of the big swamp and then we're going to meet there. You also should keep each other in sight or in hearing distance all the time. That's the only way to be effective. Great way to hunt. This 2-man technique worked well for my teenage son and for me on his first deer hunt. He shot a 10-point farm country buck that was hiding in a thicket about 50 yards long and maybe 15 yards wide. Trying to sneak up on that buck by myself would have been almost impossible because of his tangled hiding place. But the mini drive worked. Studies on the success of hunting tactics show that drives are the most successful form of hunting for the amount of time spent. Let me tell you that again. That's very important. Studies of the success of hunting tactics showed that drives are the most successful for the amount of time spent in the woods. Some still don't like driving deer. They claim it's too much like work and not much fun. Well, that's strictly a personal, subjective matter that each sportsman has to decide for himself. My personal style of hunting, my choice is a stalking or still hunting, one-on-one. It's, I guess, the toughest kind of hunting, but to me it's the most rewarding, where all your knowledge of the deer, your use of the magic mile details, your preseason scouting of the area, everything that you've worked on is starting to pay off. When you're still hunting, you walk a little bit, like we said before, and you stop. Don't stop out here in the middle of the open like this. Let's get over here and stop by the bushes. We're going to stand here for a few minutes. When you cross an opening like that, cross it in a hurry. Get yourself a position over here on the side. When you're still hunting, you're walking up here. Look at that. There's droppings right here on the runway. We've got a little bit of a deer runway coming down through here. See, here's a better runway coming across here. Let me point this out. See here? Look at this. Right here, we've got a nice runway, reasonably fresh. The deer tracks don't show up a lot because we're in grass, but there's definitely a runway that comes right along this little swale, goes up on that hill. It would be my guess that when it's really cold, that morning sun comes up and it shines out of the southeast, hits that hillside over there. Those deer are probably laying up there where it's warm and they're out of the wind, which is predominantly out of the northwest. So that southeast exposure is going to be where the deer are laying. It's just more pleasant for them. And they cross over here. Let's go up here and check on some more sign. When you're still hunting, you have to be looking at these things all the time, almost second nature. Check. Here's where some deer have been pawing around in here. They've been down in here browsing. Come on through. This is thick. Really thick, and that's what deer like. They don't like to be out in the open. When you're crossing an opening, as I said before, get across quickly. Don't waste your time out in the opening. Get over to these areas where you can be a little bit concealed and watch. Remember what we said? An area you can command with your rifle or shotgun. That's all. It doesn't mean a thing to me what's on the other side of that hill, because I can't command that area. I can only command the area within this basin in here, which is probably 100 yards that way, 40 yards that way, and 50 yards that way. That's the area I can command. What's on the other side I could care less about until I get over there. Let's go take a look. Here's some tracks. Looks like some hunter's been through here. You have to be watching this stuff all the time. But deer will get in right in the middle of a jungle like this, and they'll lay down. And if you're out there by yourself, still hunting, a deer could let you walk all the way around and never jump. He could be laying right in there. If you're by yourself, you have to get in there and kick it up. I mean, you might think, well, gee, that's like rabbit hunting. but it isn't. That's why I like to wear the glasses. These briars will just scratch your eyes right out. We're going to go right through this stuff. Remember what I said? Deer like to get in the thickest stuff and lay right down. They'll burrow down in there. Keep your gun in a safe position. Keep your finger off the trigger. Keep that scope at the lowest power so you have the best field of view. Look at that. There's droppings in here. They like to get in this stuff. That stuff will rip your clothes right off. Well, that's the still hunter's way. It may not be your way. It's a very demanding way to hunt. There is no perfect rifle, and there is no perfect hunting strategy. Often, your best hunting strategy is one that's based on the current wind, the current weather, whether it's sunshine, dark, raining, or snowing. All of these things combined give you the perfect strategy, which is perfect only for that moment. Most hunters chase more deer around, move more deer around by accident than they ever do on purpose. So you've got to be aware of what other hunters are doing. That changing hunting pressure means you have different problems and you have different opportunities. Let's take, for example, a typical hunting day and how it should run. From dawn, or just before dawn, till about 9 o'clock in the morning, I recommend you go out, find that good spot you located in pre-scouting, and sit. Sit the right way. From 9 till about noon, I like to get up, move around, do a little still hunting or a little stalking. That's rare, very slow, very careful. Then while the other guys are going ambling in for lunch, you should sit again around midday. If they go in and have that snooze and the woods get very quiet, the activity dies down, then it's time for a small drive. If you have some buddies who hunt the way you do, make that little drive or do some more still hunting on your own. By the way, there's nothing wrong with going in for a rest, a little relaxation, a siesta. You know, hunting is supposed to be fun, so don't overestimate your abilities and don't push yourself beyond your limits. When all the pieces of the puzzle come together and you finally reach that moment of truth to shoot or don't shoot, well, it's a very personal decision one has to make. Every thoughtful hunter has to wrestle with special feelings as he squeezes the trigger on that great and beautiful big game animal. However, the hunt isn't over when the gun goes off. An important aspect of hunter responsibility continues after the shot. If you had followed all of the recommendations in selecting the proper gun and bullet, and then all the tips and tricks on waiting for that perfect moment to fire, your deer should have dropped in his tracks. Well, it doesn't always happen in such fashion. Here's what you have to do. First, go immediately to the last spot where you saw the deer. Second, note the direction that the deer traveled. Third, mark the last spot where you saw the deer. Fourth, examine that spot and the spot where the deer was shot to look for signs of hair or blood. If the hair is white, your deer could have been hit in the belly, rump, or leg. Fifth, wait at least 15 minutes by the clock before taking up the trail. And as you track, carefully look on either side of that trail for the deer watching his backtrack. Sixth, if you should find a pool of blood, that's evidence that the deer had been down, and you should stop again. Wait another 15 minutes to give the deer a chance to lie down once more. You're pushing the deer too fast. Seventh, if the blood or tracks disappear, mark that last positive spot. 8, make ever-widening arcs until you find the track again. 9th, if you fail to find the track or the deer, go back to camp and get help before rain or snow wipe out the trail.
I hope we can find him.
Remember where you shot it, Pete.
I shot it along this trail. He came up. And he took off after I shot him.
See anything, Pete?
No, not yet.
Look, I'm sure he came up this way. Saw the blood right back there.
There's a little bit there, so.
Hey, Pete, look.
Hence, when you locate the deer, make sure he's dead. Approach it from its backside. Every hunter is legally and ethically bound and responsible for making every possible effort not to waste game.
That's a pretty nice deer, Pete. Nice. Look at that. Doesn't look that big, but after a while, it feels like it's about 400 pounds, doesn't it? This is the fun part of shooting a deer, Pete.
Yeah, you gotta go through it.
You won't forget this. Camp's just up here, about another 200, 300 yards.
Seems like miles to me.
Just take your time. We have all day. Well, I haven't got mine yet. You could
I'll show you up.
help me.
Deer hunting is a time of harvest, not a time of waste. It's a magic time when we match wits with a wary whitetail deer. It's a chance to be with family and friends back in some old tent or cabin or camper or farmhouse or bunkhouse, back in our past or back in the pines. For me, deer hunting is a time to do something very special, to recharge the old batteries, to scratch some inner itch, to satisfy some deep urge from within our genes, from within our souls. Deer hunting is a chance to develop a full appreciation of the whitetail on his terms, on his turf out here. For me, full appreciation means the complete act of hunting, from the year-long anticipation to the preseason scouting, to the rifle range, to the practice sessions, to the bull sessions with your friends, and to the actual hunt, climaxed by the sharing of venison with family and friends. That's whitetail deer hunting. That's what successful whitetail deer hunting is all about.